As far as weapons, staff, axe, dagger. Yeah, they're not going to show, but just know they're a marauder. You can do axe focus. Focus is another good option, but the build does have dagger trait specifically, so it's a bonus there.
Do necromancers apply weakness?
There is some weakness here and there, yep.
Okay, I don't know if I want to run more extra shouts if we're not going to fight people.
Oh, I mean, in here it's just going to be like NPCs.
PvE,
I don't
right?
think anybody shows up really.
Okay. Do they have a lot of break bars, or is it not worth it? I don't think it's worth it.
Maybe the Tower Lords. I haven't barely played this map in a while, so. Okay, so really with Power Reaper or Power Scourge, your two first traits are the same. Your Soul Reaping and your Blood Magic. Welcome. Let's walk and talk. That's good.
Okay.
So your and again, this is an unusual build. This is probably not what you would see on Meta Battle. Probably not exactly what most guilds would expect you to run. They didn't put in more spite instead of blood magic. But there is some big bonuses to blood magic that give you an edge when you're learning Scourge. There's a waypoint up here. Let's take that waypoint right above us. Is that unlocked for you guys?
Yeah.
Alright, so as far as trait, Soul Reaping, you've got the first one, middle, Soul Marks. That buffs your staff skills, unblockable, which is a big deal. You've got your Soul Barbs for the next one. That gives you a pretty strong mechanic where F5 counts as your Shroud. In Scourge, Shroud doesn't really make sense as much as it does in Reaper, because you can see it. But the F5, the default key F5, the Desert Shroud, after you hit that, you get a huge damage buff to your other skills. Let's find something to hit. So, as far as a bomb, quote unquote, for a Necro, you're trying to hit your F5 to boost your other skills. It does trigger things where you cast your Shade as well, but as far as functionality, you can get a bonus to your wells and your other skills if you hit it early. We've got a tower, something up here we can hit. So then the last one in the Soul Reaping is the Deathly Perception, which is boosting your crit chance and your ferocity, which with a power build, your ferocity and your crit chance is everything. So right now with this, I'm sitting at 50% crit chance. But after you hit your Shroud, your crit chance goes up. So that instantly boosts your crit chance to more like 83. It's going to be dependent highly on your gear. If you have Condi gear, it's not going to work. But that's the Marauder. So that brings us to the other part of Life Force, which doesn't compute if you haven't played Necro, but your yellow bar has to be filled up before you get into a fight. You have to kill things. You have to hit things. Your staff marks do good at that. They give you some life force. But when you get onto a map, you are responsible for your life force. You need to go and kill animals and guards and things to get that yellow bar filled up before you get in the fight.
Okay.
There's some tricks you can do, like you can equip a minion skill and kill the minions, and that will give you some life force. But in World vs. World, I mean, if you take a camp or something, you should get your life force up. You just gotta not waste it. Alright, so we went through the Soul Reaping, which is the same for Reaper. And so then we got the Blood Magic, which is the tankier, unusual variant. So, Blood Magic, the thing that I really think is just a huge deal is the Quickening Thirst. The dagger trait in Blood Magic. Every single Scourge I've ever talked to that was having trouble felt like they were too slow, and they were just getting picked off and were falling behind, etc. Well, there's your speed boost, your 25% speed boost, as long as you can keep your health up. Beyond that, the Vampiric Presence, the bottom one, you siphon health, so that's another tankiness option. Just by being near enemies, you get their health. It also affects allies, so that helps the group. And gate's almost down. And the last one is the Blood Bank, so any healing that you get when you're at full health turns into Barrier. And Barrier is a weird Scourge mechanic, but you see look at your health bar. You should have lots of extra health. You see the yellow numbers on top of the regular numbers?
Yeah.
So that's all Barrier, and we're applying it to each other with our F2 and our different mechanics. But that's huge. Let's go ahead and move in on Lord here. So let's get some life force up. Hit him with your staff skill. Pull us in, no big deal. So hit your F5 and drop your wells on. And you've got your Shade, and just mash all your F skills. And Shade respawns pretty quick. You can do Shade, another Shade, another Shade. And then your finisher move, you're swapping Axe and hit him with the 2. The 2 is just a huge hit. So that Barrier is proactive instead of reactive. You want to put it up before you get hit. And so that's where the heal skill is unusual. You want to hit it ahead of the fight, or right as you're getting hit, not so much to heal yourself, but to have some Barrier, because it gives other people Barrier too. So your heal skill plus your F2 are both Barrier skills. So if you hit those going into the fight, and you stagger them a bit, then everybody gets a little bit of extra cushion. Welcome. And then just the Scourge traits are related to... What does the spell do? Goodbye. First one is group support, so the grit. So the barrier that we just spoke about, the F2 and the 6 that you're granting to people, also gives might, also removes conditions. So extra buffs there just from hitting the skills you're already using. We've got the Sadistic Searing, which is a recharge boost to your heal skill as well as your elite. And get some burning out of your shades. Alright, so here's the unpopular opinion. Let's go ahead and hit these code in here. The meta move, quote unquote, for the last Scourge trait is top. I'm sorry, it's middle. So, and that plays in very well if you're doing Condi Scourge. If you're doing Condi Scourge, by all means, the last one should be middle. But if you're not great at Scourge, or you're new to Scourge, or you're just getting into really big fights, the top one does work pretty well. It used to be way better because it hit more targets, but still, the radius increase is just way fucking easier to hit things. Like, if you've got a tiny shade, you're not going to hit as many things as if you have a big shade, especially if they're moving a lot. Yeah, the target cap is the controversial part. I mean, you're not going to hit 5 people like you would, but I don't know. Try it out. I mean, you can switch the trait to middle and see how much smaller the circle is for the shade. That brings us to another good point. Yeah. So they have changed these effects quite a bit recently. So they had it originally where your F skills, your Scourge, your Fair Thing, your F2 Condi Clear, your Barrier, would trigger where you're at as well as where you place your shade. So if you place your shade on these guys up here, and you press the F4 for Fear, Fear is going to happen where I am as well as where I put my shade up there. Same thing for the big damage of the F5. Or Barrier, if you would have allies up there, it would give them Barrier. But yeah, the bottom is got some good tankiness option. I like the ability to get the boons that you're corrupting, so that's a good option as well. The small shade really, I mean, I guess you might be crippling yourself a bit if you learn with the big one, but yeah, try out the bottom one in Scourge, the feed from corruption for the last one. Let's get ramp down. Build up here. Yeah, Puppet plays Scourge quite a bit more than I do. But a lot of the learning Scourge is figuring out your ranges, because your staff has 1200. Your staff has max long range, whereas your wells and your shades not as much. They're at 900. So you're starting out on staff. In every fight, ideally, you're starting on staff. You hit them with a little bit of staff stuff, which the staff skills are all AoE. They're all 5 target, so that's a big deal too. And they're very useful for breaking Aegis and such on the enemy, putting a little bit of cover Condi on them. And so you get those off, you drop as many staff things as you can on the enemy, and then you are casting them as you're moving forward. So you're hitting them with the staff, and then you're close enough at that point to put the shades and the wells on them. Keeping in mind that you want to hit your F5 first, boost those, and boost your crit chance. The boon removal is the big part of your job that doesn't really exist with other classes, and that's a big part of the wells, the Well of Corruption, which I guess is that and the Well of Suffering are your highest value skills. Like that's what the commander wants to know about. If you've used them and you don't have them anymore, if you interrupted them, if they're not available, that's what the ag would need to know, because that's a big part of whether they can push or not. Kind of like the bubble. So it's a bit situational as far as wells and the shades, but the wells being higher value and the shades having the quicker recharge, you can put down more shades than you can wells. So try to save the wells a bit more for a big situation where they're all clumped up in a choke or where there's downs. If you put a well on a down, that's kind of game over for them, especially if anybody tries to res it. And yeah, by all means, if anybody has questions while I'm going, please ask, type, or talk, whatever. We just capped this. Why are there enemies on the top? Actually, we'll make use of these guys. Alright, so we're going to hit at 1200 range. Just stack right here. This doesn't hurt, don't worry about that stuff. Put a little barrier up. Staff skills. Staff skills on that code in there. Staff only. Staff, staff, staff. Use your barrier, keep your health up. Alright. Now there's one behind us. We're going to push up and drop wells. So first it'll be F5. You drop the well, and then your F4. So push up. Shade. Get the F5, get the F4. You drop another shade. Just keep dropping shades on them. More shades, more shades. Alright. Next one. Drop shade. You can go back with your skills when they're ready. Forward. Next one we're going to do wells. This far guy's going to get the well. Well of Corruption. Well of Suffering. And then we're going with shade. Shade, shade, shade. F5. Yeah, you really need to be hitting F5 on cooldown once you're in a position where you're hitting stuff. I mean, the other part of it is it's going to pulse damage where your shade is. And yeah, with the small shades, you can have 3 of them out at once, so you can kind of spread them in the same area in like a triangle, and they all hit the enemy for, so if you can hit 3 on that guy and hit the F5, it's just gonna hurt him quite a bit. 1, 3, and then hit the F5. If you hit it a bit late, it's not a huge deal because it's gonna pulse damage on the shades anyway. Just try to get that F5 hit while you're doing other damage. The wells pulse as well, so it's something you need to get in there while you're mashing buttons. Alright, so we're going to swap to Axe, push up on this guy, and just slam him with the 2. If you see a down, swap weapons, Axe 2. They're done. They're deleted. All these things, except for the Axe, really are awesome because they hit multiple targets. That's why the Scourge is winning on DPS most of the time. Because if we can get our friendly warrior to group up some enemies out there, that would be cool. Dark, help me out. So ideally, a few people are going to follow him, and we can just step up. And it's like a exponential multiplying thing. Like if you hit one target, you know, whatever, you only get 5k damage. If you hit 5 targets, you get 25k damage. I do forget the Axe 3. Yeah, Axe 3 for the CC is huge. Its radius is not huge, though, so that's kind of once you're pushing. Same deal with the Elite, with the Breach. Once we're running in, once we're pushing, once we're following a bubble, the Elite is really big. Especially in choke points. Alright, let's jump down and hit these guys. So we'll melee push this guy, get a Breach on him, use your Elite, and your Axe 3. These guys don't totally show the effect as well because they don't have boons like real players do. But real players are relying on their protection and stability, etc., quite a bit, and you're just they're just not going to have anything they expect. I think we got to go this way. Might as well get this. That's the nuts and bolts. That's really most of Scourge right there. There's some situationalness to when you're using wells versus when you're using shades, but those components, if you can get them together and be able to hit them really quick, you know, a full bomb, just mash all those buttons in the same place. That's how Zergs win fights. You don't have to be particularly good at Scourge. You just have to mash all your buttons at the same time. Using the
While keeping F5 on cooldown, right?
right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give it 100% on this guy. Try to open with some fear to break his bar, so that'd be your staff 5. And then we're just gonna unload, starting with staff, and wells, and shades. Alright, 3, 2, 1. Staff it. Shade F5. Drop some well. Whatever F5 you got left. And swapping the axe, hit him with the 2. We're gonna push in, go melee, full push, breach. More shades. And then back off. Once you bomb, don't stand there. Always back off. They will hit back. I think I just alt-ed forward. So this is why I don't command with Scourge, because my my alternate key is my push to talk hotkey. So if I hit that and then the F4, bad things happen. So watch your hotkeys. Yeah, so that's Scourge. The other thing would just be the Reaper variant. But before I move on to that, while I'm loading back in here, any questions that came up or things that stuck out there?
No, not at the moment. While you load in, I'm gonna grab a beer.
Yeah, go for it. Your other one skill that I didn't mention is the stun break, the snail trail. What's it called? The green feet thing. Trail of Anguish. There we go. It would have been cool if I would have asked somebody to record this. That would have been really smart of me. Oh, we are? Okay, thank you. Perfect. Len saves the day. Alright, so if you can post that for people later, that will be awesome.
I'm back.
Yeah. Just the alt F4. We don't need anything else.
This will be part of the new YouTube recruiting ad.
Wow, we actually made it a ways across the map here.
Oh, are you all the way over there?
Yeah, there's only one waypoint here.
Oh.
Oh my god, when I got booted by that ranger, that was so fucking tough.
Oh yeah, I gotta see if I got that on the recording I did yesterday. I wrote down the time. It was an hour and 32 minutes into the recording, so hopefully I captured that.
We can. You don't have to remember that part.
I kind of do though. Just kidding.
Alright, so let me